Hello. Welcome to the In Love with Business podcast. This miniseries is titled Chief Sustainability Heroes and is hosted by Professor Paolo and Melina Shore from University College London, School of Management. Throughout this series, we will talk to sustainability leaders from different organizations and sectors to learn about their sustainability journeys. We will ask them about their career paths, the challenges they encountered in implementing complex strategies of sustainable transformation, and what inspired them along the way. We will also ask what advice they would offer to aspiring chief sustainability officers. Enjoy the episode.
Today's episode, we are joined by Charlotte Wolff-Bye, Chief Sustainability Officer at Petronas. Petronas is a Malaysian multinational energy company that operates in 100 plus countries worldwide. Charlotte has been with Petronas since 2021. Welcome, Charlotte. It's a pleasure to have you with us in our show today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
And of course, thank you, Melina, for being the co-host in this show.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So, Charlotte, can you tell us a little bit about your background and your path to becoming a Chief Sustainability Officer?
I certainly can. So I studied business and economics, so that's my background. I'm from Finland, and I always had a passion for business. But I'm one of those few people that can probably say that I didn't just sort of end up in sustainability. This was a clear career path for me from day one. This is something I always had my eyes on, even before the profession existed, and something I've been busy doing for a very long time now.
So what was kind of really inspiring you to kind of going in the direction of sustainability and basically trying to drive change in a large organization? What was the driver inside you?
It's hard to tell. I guess when you grow up in the Nordics, you're quite close to nature, and when you see nature changing, it kind of maybe worries you a little bit. I was a young child when Chernobyl happened, and you're very aware of things. But also, I've always been very interested in international affairs and news. And I guess in my family around the table, we used to talk about world affairs and everything that comes with it. So I think there's always a bit of a passion around that and a very close connection to nature. But at the same time, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I really strongly believe in the positive sort of power of business. I think business can be really good for society, but unchecked, it's not always the case. And I wanted to be part of that journey where you do business that does good. So that's kind of maybe the driver for it.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Could you describe for us, in your words, what the role of a Chief Sustainability Officer is?
I think this requires a really long answer because it's kind of everything and all the things in between. It really depends on what sector you're in.
Okay.
But I would describe it as when you work in sustainability for a big corporation, and probably also in a smaller corporation, you are sort of the intersection between business and society. So you translate back into business what's going on inside society and where social norms are kind of evolving in which direction. At the same time, you morph that into insights for the business, what you hear outside, how is it relevant to you, will it impact you, and how should you respond? And then vice versa, you engage on the business message back to society. So I think that's sort of maybe one way of describing it, but it sounds quite maybe lofty or ambiguous to describe it that way. But in a day-to-day job, it's really about making sure that business benefits society in much better ways than it does perhaps today, making sure that whilst you're creating value, you create value for more stakeholders around you. And that doesn't just mean people and other businesses. And society is also environment, and the physical environment, and those those constituents that don't have voices. So it's really to understand your impacts on society, measure them, and hopefully you can leave society in a better place.
Let me interrupt you here for a second, and I would like to ask you something. You have been in industry for a while. Do you have the feeling that your job has changed since when you started as a chief sustainability officer? Is today different from when you started?
Well, it certainly has changed over the years. So I mentioned earlier that this was always a clear career path for me, to combine this sort of feeling of doing good for society and business. So in the early days, my first jobs, I started out in multilateral finance, worked on finance packages for developing countries. But then I moved very quickly into private sector, and it started out with social impact reporting, environmental reporting. So that sort of data crunching and trying to establish what is your impact on society. But I would say fast forward to today, it's a very different environment. It's no longer sort of a compliance activity. It's much more about what is the role of business in society. How can you be a force for good in society? What's the purpose of the business? And how can you, through your everyday activities, sort of support the attainment of a positive purpose? And I would say also, almost every business nowadays is there to drive some kind of a sustainability objective. Not many businesses are out there to just do not so good things for society. So I think we're in a much better place now than when I started all those years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great message of optimism. So speaking,
I am a huge optimist,
yeah.
I must say.
So based on your experience, can you just describe for us some challenges? So what are the biggest challenges that are facing companies today? And how, as a chief sustainability officer, do you address those challenges?
Work in sustainability in a big corporation, or I guess in any organization, it's effectively change management. And I feel that everything you do, you basically never done before. So because when you work on sustainability, you're only successful if you can embed those practices into the organization. So every day you do something new that the organization's never done before. So the everyday challenge, I guess, is that constant change. So as a practitioner, you really need to be able to believe in what you do all the necessary groundwork and understand the facts behind what you're trying to achieve. But also you need to be able to energize yourself, because the door will be kind of slammed at you more times than it's open. Mm-hmm. So you need to be really resilient and be able to dig quite deep to bounce back every day. I think for me, I'm quite used to it. And every day, I think it's not a struggle. Every day is a small achievement. So in a way, I don't see it so much as a challenge, because of course change is different, but you can't impose it on people. You need to just sort of enable the environment and the ecosystem to see it for itself, that there's a different way of going about things. So I wouldn't call them everyday challenges. It's more of an opportunity every day.
And can I ask you, Charlotte, about the critical skills that a chief sustainability officer should be able to demonstrate? What are they? How do you develop them? And how do you maintain them in your career?
There's so many skills you require, I think, when you work with sustainability, because it's sort of jack of all trades. I would say today you need to have much sharper analytical skills. I don't think you can just promote a big strategic change because you think it's the right thing to do. You need to be able to back up your thesis with facts and figures. So analytical skills are critical, but also very important to be able to cross-connect different subjects and insights. So those types of conceptual skills are incredibly important. So I think a good example is I've been doing this for quite a long time, and I've seen how sort of you have the the climate track and you go to conferences just talking about climate change or greenhouse gas emissions, then you have a whole separate track of the world that talks about nature and biodiversity. And typically those groups never join, or you can go to a human rights conference probably every day of the year, and you will never find a human or a climate change person perhaps there. But I think when you work for a big corporation that can have really strong positive impact, you need to be able to connect them and those different agendas. And I'm really pleased to see that in academia, you now see more of this sort of cross engagement across faculties and universities, really connecting the big issues around climate change, human rights, biodiversity, and so on. So those conceptual skills are incredibly important to connect the dots. And on top of that, I would say critical skills are very important. Don't trust everything that people tell you and what you read. We need to really be able to consume a lot of information from different sources and evaluate it. And then tactical skills, influencing skills. I also believe that it's good to know legal constructs. That's quite helpful as well. Mm-hmm. And have a commercial instinct, because at the end of the day, if you work in a business, you are in a profit-making environment. So you need to understand how can you create more value, but with much better positive impact. So you really need to know a little bit of everything. But in today's situation or environment, I would say that being a generalist is not quite enough. You do need to have some very specific technical skills as well. You would be looked at in the company as the specialist on anything from human rights to biodiversity impact. So you do need to have a quite deep-rooted understanding, even if you're not maybe an academic expert on all of those topics.
So we might have students, university students listening this podcast, and maybe some of them might have the dream of becoming a chief sustainability officer in a large organization. So as soon as you graduate from university, what you should do next? You do like a master's with a focus on sustainability. You should try to join a sustainability team. Or, other experiences that could lead you to becoming a sustainability officer in any case. Well, what's your view on this?
Well, this is a lovely question, Paolo. Thank you for asking, because this gives me the opportunity to not straight ahead answer your question, but to say something that's very important to me. A lot of students that I meet, and I do meet many because I do like to do sort of campus work, because a lot of students want to work maybe on something charitable or maybe renewable technology, energy, and areas like that. Great, please do. That's fantastic. But you know what? The sharpest minds are required where the challenges are the biggest. And I work in the energy sector, and I would say this is where we need really the brightest minds. It's such an exciting period right now because we're going to see an energy transition like nothing we've seen before. It will unleash trillions of dollars into society. We will see how people commute and transport and how you consume and produce energy shift. That's where we need the brightest minds. So I would say be enticed to join an environment which you might feel a bit maybe even uncomfortable about, but where your skills are most needed. So agriculture would be another space, manufacturing, and so on. Now, how do you get involved? I think if you are keen to get into sustainability or become a chief sustainability officer, that's a great ambition. I can testify it's a very nice role to have. But how do you get involved? So I receive many CVs and I interview people every month actually. And what I always look for is that extracurricular passion and interest. So what have you been doing during your student years or even earlier? And I value people who've been doing different things. So a couple of years ago, I was going through internship applications, and there was a young environmental law student who had been working in a bakery in a Tesco supermarket. And I thought, great, so this is certainly somebody who gets up very early, but also deals with the general customer from all walks of life. And that's a great skill to have. And so he certainly got an internship that year, but also others who are very active in society and community, even in sort of uncomfortable settings. And I think really people who've shown resilience, traveled on their own, and really shown a curiosity towards life and going beyond their own comfort zones. That's the most important thing to me. So I would say it's not about first finishing your studies and then thinking about it. You need to go after your passions, and that will shine through, I think, when you go for recruitment. If you haven't done anything before your day of graduation, you're probably not so passionate about it, I would say.
Nice.
Very nice. Just to build on Paolo's question, so once those students go on and graduate and find their first jobs, what advice do you give to employees? So employees who are part of the corporation or a company, large or small, who are on this journey, but might not have sustainability in their title. So how do you engage employees for them to contribute to sustainability strategy within an organization?
Melina, that is also yet again a very pertinent question, because a lot of people do feel very passionately about sustainability and want to work with sustainability. But of course, they can probably make even more of an impact of working where they are. So if you are a lawyer, or perhaps you work in marketing, all those areas also need to embed sustainability into their day-to-day work. So if you're very passionate, then I kind of rather keep you where you are, because you can create better impact there than maybe perhaps in my team. But I think also, how do you get involved and engage? I think there's a lot of opportunities now to be very much engaged in a corporate environment around sustainability. Certainly in Petronas, but also previous companies I worked in, there's a lot of information opportunities, seminars, and there's all kinds of opportunities to get involved and also to speak up. And you can contact the sustainability team, what can I do more of, and so on. Sometimes it's just a little bit, provide a bit of a context and a few tools or a platform, and people will kind of take it from there. Where you want to be is you have really empowered and mobilized employees doing their thing, and your problem should be just harnessing all the energy rather than to awaken the energy. So that's a good place and space to be. I would also say that now with the workforce being predominantly millennials and younger generations coming through as well, I would say that the context is changing a lot. It's no longer do you have a small team somewhere doing sustainability. It really permeates everything, and because that's what the younger workforce really expects and demands from their employer.
Great. Thank you.
Nice. Can I ask you, Charlotte, about the type of initiatives that you have developed at Petronas? Is there one you are particularly proud of? Maybe a complex initiative that you developed that has produced maybe, unexpected results or incredibly impactful results? Something that, when you look back, you say, actually, here we did something amazing.
So, to be honest, I think most of the things going on here at Petronas, I can't take any credit for, because it is quite a remarkable organization, and I just don't say it. I'm still amazed. I've been here for 2 years, and this place really rocks in many ways. And let me substantiate a little bit my praise here. For instance, Petronas is something called Young Petronas, Young Professionals at Petronas, which is a very vibrant group that get so involved in various things, but also get supported financially to do different initiatives. And they are really, really keeping the rest of the organization on its toes and making the younger voices heard. And they do real things, real activities. It's not just seminars and things. They do real initiatives. And so I find I've never seen that before to this extent. It's quite something. And another thing I must mention that always impresses me so much, Petronas has put about 38,000 people through university. and some of the best universities in the world, and really creates this great, great sort of future, I think, not just for Petronas, but for the country of Malaysia alongside other companies, and really focuses on education a lot. Now, what have I done? So I've been here for 2 years. I think we've achieved a lot, but actually because the ground has been fertile or fertilized for a long time. So my role was new when I joined. So I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer here, and a great honor to hold this position. And I guess we have just pulled a lot of the energy and excitement together to kind of deliver on specific actions that needed to be done. So the company had announced an aspiration to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. So my team helped run an enterprise-wide project to define what would that pathway look like. So now we have targets, and the whole organization, and I really mean this, the whole organization is completely now driving this decarbonization effort. So we have big projects underway. We also have a capital expenditure allocated specifically for that, and incentives to drive this change. We also are investing heavily in new energy solutions for low carbon energy solutions and renewables and hydrogen, green mobility, and so on. So in a way, I don't think we have done specifically as an initiative as such, but we kind of pulled it all together so that we now have a real pathway, and now it's easier to put the projects in place and so on to feed towards specific goals. So I think that's what sustainability functions do a lot. It's taking bigger concepts and making them into workable management plans. So that's what we've been doing. And right now we're working on other areas such as just transition and things like that. So it's not just environment.
And I remember, you arrived in KL from London, so another country, from another industry. So I'm curious, what do you do in, day one as a chief sustainability officer in a global, 500 company? And what do you do in the first 100 days?
Well, I had a maybe not so unique, but for me, certain unique start, because it was in the middle of COVID, middle of lockdown, both in London and in Kuala Lumpur. So that was kind of what was going on. And obviously, I'm not the only one who started a new job in the middle of that, but there was a lot of things happening virtually. Me sitting in a different time zone because planes weren't running and all these things. So that was, I must say, that was a bit different. But then eventually the skies opened a bit, and I could arrive actually on location, which is fantastic. Still in lockdown though. So I was still virtual, but at least I was in the right time zone. So that felt much better. I didn't have a team to start out with, but I had super support from human resources and others to kind of help build a team. And what do we do? I'm just trying to think. I think the first thing you do is agree with your boss what the objectives are. And in my case, as it was a new role, I had quite a sort of an open opportunity to present what I think needed doing. I came from the same industry, so I had a relatively good feel for where I felt the emphasis should be. So start out with establishing your objectives, and then you start out with a bit of a plan. And then you think, I might need a few people around this. So you start building your team and all of that. But I would also say that when you walk into a big business, the support networks tend to be quite strong. So if you know roughly what you need doing, there's always somebody to call that will be able to help you. And you might not always know the processes and the systems, but there's others who would know that. So that's kind of what I was busy doing. But it was unusual for me because I never started anything in a lockdown before. But then I'm thinking there's probably quite a few thousand other people who had the same situation as me. So.
Wow.
And in terms of, Melina, please.
No, I was just curious. So 2 years into your role, it sounds like sustainability team started with yourself. So what does it look like today in terms of size, just given the size of your organization as well?
You can see why we are co-hosts, because I was going to ask the same question.
Oh.
Well, so I must obviously start by saying I have the best team in the world. I'm so truly delighted about my team. The majority of my colleagues in my team are from the company. They've been here since graduation and really know the business in and out. And they come from all different parts of the business. So one might have worked in a fertilizer plant, another one in a refinery, perhaps gas grading, really is in the whole value chain of oil and gas. And so that or chemicals. So that's a huge strength to my team. It's quite rare that you have a sustainability team with so many engineers, and I am the lucky one, I must say. And we also have some accountants, but predominantly engineers and a few accountants. Size-wise, we're quite a sizable team. We're above 30, and it's going to grow much bigger than that. But that's partly because I also run projects. So I have a big effort right now around nature and biodiversity that needs very specific skills, and we will incubate that for some time before we find perhaps another better home for it. We're also looking at other areas. So as a corporate team, we might come across as on the larger side, but that's actually because we do some operational work as well, which is to kickstart some new activities. But it is, I've been doing this for a while, and I must say that it's amazing to have all these analytically trained people who really understand all the ins and outs of engineering. It's a huge strength.
Great.
And I guess you were referring before to the complexity of sustainable transformation, and for example, the major energy transition facing your industry and your company. So I assume as a sustainability officer, you are always in a journey and you have your ups and downs. How do you stay motivated? How do you cope with the pressure?
So sustainability is not something you do as a job. And throughout my career, I always had somebody in my team who kind of goes like, "Oof, this wasn't quite for me," because I think when you do sustainability, it's not just delivering on tasks that somebody prepares for you. Here's the task, deliver, and come back for another task. Then you actually need to be able to conceptualize first what is the problem you need to solve, or what is you need to create your own tasks. I would say that goes for almost all roles in a sustainability function. So even your day-to-day work is one of transition and constant development. You might also, like here in Petronas, we do, like many other organizations, we adopted this agile work method. So we're allowing fast fails also. So you might think this is the problem or the question that we need to ask and solve, but then we realize halfway through perhaps it wasn't quite the right question. So you kind of maybe change the course a little bit. So I think even in a day-to-day activity is a constant change, but as an industry, of course, there's big change. So whilst sustainability is always about changing how you operate and how you do things, but with the energy transition now, it's the whole sector needs to evolve. So that means that as a practitioner, you also need to have a good understanding of scenario planning, how you prepare for multiple futures. So strategic skills are absolutely critical at this juncture as well.
Nice. And so at this point, I would like to go back to the projects that you are developing and developed in the past as well in other organizations. How do you measure the impact of the initiatives you design, and also how do you communicate it to others, internally and externally, of course?
Internally, it's pretty straightforward. If whatever you've been working on has found a home, there's people imposed to work on it, and you have it's sort of embedded into budgets and so on, then you sort of succeeded and you can move on to the next thing. But otherwise, I would think externally, we do need to show proof of the pudding. So if you work on reducing emissions, you certainly want to verify that data and present it nicely. If it's on nature-based solutions, which of course is hot in the press right now, you really want to have third-party testimonial that whatever you've been working on has worked. And I think accountability is absolutely critical, because at the end of the day, you are a custodian of what you're doing. It's not your money. You are a custodian of it, to create a better, more resilient business, whilst you're also supporting other stakeholders. So always be mindful of that you are sort of a custodian of somebody else's assets. But accountability, critical, reporting, transparency, all of those things.
Great. And for companies, so large or small, what resources are most needed for organizations to achieve their sustainability goals? So whether it's, digital systems, new technology,
People,
exactly.
So I read a study recently. I think it had been sponsored by Microsoft or something. It was a very interesting study about the state of sustainability skills and what's required. Mm-hmm. And it was talking about how the need for sustainability professionals is growing by 8% per annum, but the universities are only churning out 6% per annum or something like that. It was quite precise. But it talked about how you actually now need really strong sustainability, like technical skills, for instance, emissions management, data management, to scrutinize the data, to pull it together. All of that is really quite critical. But then you also need to understand the frameworks. You need to understand the nuances of the sort of different things you work on. So, what examples could I share? But for instance, you can't call something green just because you think it is green. You need to be able to prove it and sort of understand the nuances behind it. You need to understand also the perspective of external stakeholders, why they have a certain view of you, and so there really is you need to have so many different skill sets. But I would say also so many big business are also now trying to sell services in this space. Not everybody is as experienced as they might claim. So that's also worth noting. There's been a lot of smaller businesses acting very effectively in this space for decades. And I notice now that they've disappeared because they've been bought up by big consultancies, because the skills are so critical. There's not enough professionals out there. This is very, very clear. I read somewhere that in LinkedIn, sustainability roles are the fastest growing vacancies advertised on LinkedIn. So that says something, that this is a really growing area. And perhaps universities been a bit slow in producing them. And in the same study that I was referencing, I was reading that most companies develop their own talent. So it comes from their own companies, but it's not enough. They don't have enough depth of understanding. So you need both, developing own talent and bringing those who might have studied something very specific in the sustainability space. I think that's what's required now, because now you've got more legal and regulatory requirements. So you need to get.
I think you touched on something really important there about the importance of training as well. So building upskilling within your organization and really helping people develop as well.
And that's something that, if I may say, I've only lived in Asia for a couple of years, but I worked for major businesses across Europe before. And education and training has always been very important in all big businesses. But it's completely on a different scale here in Asia. I think education, this is from my limited perspective, but it's really valued much more. And I would also say that the way Petronas invests in education and training and upskilling and reskilling staff, it's is something I never ever observed before. The scale of it is incredible. Just on sustainability, we had people in their hundreds attending multi-month training courses online last year, and this big investment into that. So I think this is so positive, and really chuffed actually to be part of that, because it's understanding how people are your most important resource. It's absolutely true, and you can't skimp on training, especially now when things are changing, because you can't leave people behind in any way. And older staff are also important, but they also need new perspectives to be able to benefit the organization.
That's great.
And can I ask you, Charlotte, how do you work with other departments? Because, of course, you are in a very large organization. So how do you interact, for example, with the finance function at Petronas, or the marketing function and supply chain? How do you align them towards sustainability?
It's a sustainability practitioner. You really always have to work with others, and so my approach has always been keep the door open. You are always the new kid on the block, if you like. Your team is probably the youngest in any organization. Finance would have been there for a long time, marketing, human resources, and so on. So you have a lot to prove. And personally, I think one of a better tactic of getting people to embrace what you are trying, or what you are mandated to deliver, is to have an open door policy and engage and offer opportunities for people to engage in your agenda, or the agenda sounds negative, but in your activities. So, for instance, find peer-to-peer engagements, perhaps for your chief finance officer to meet other chief finance officers to talk about sustainability-related finance matters or accounting issues. Same thing for human resources directors. It's beneficial for them to meet with other colleagues or peers to discuss diversity and inclusion. So you create those platforms rather than running an exclusive club for yourself. So I think that's really critical. And in a way, I think the best, we don't do this, I guess, but maybe one way of measuring that would be some kind of a customer satisfaction survey internally. Because I think you can't be successful, you can't embed this if you don't bring everybody with you. It's not my team that's supposed to deliver this. Our job is to make everybody own this activity. So that's critical to remember, I think.
We've talked a lot about sustainability and the challenges facing the world today. Are you optimistic about the future and the role that corporations can play in helping create a better future?
Absolutely. I do believe in the power of private enterprise, 100%. Let me back that up a little bit. The human ingenuity is incredible. I do believe we will partly engineer our way out of the challenges around climate change. It sounds a bit crude, but I do believe that if we look at innovation curves for solar, for instance, the prices have dropped so exponentially over the years that at some point there will be tipping points in kind of our energy systems, but also in other disruptive technologies. There's maybe something out there that we haven't seen yet, but there are many, many examples that I think academics have well recorded about how disruptive the printed book was. And it didn't take more than a couple of decades, and it became the norm of how to consume information. I would say thing with the automobile, how it replaced the horse and carriage very quickly, and so on. So I do believe that we can. I'm positive about the future, but we need. I would say that now we do need to do everything we can all at once to address climate change, nature loss, and inequality. I think that we can't rest and just hope for some Elon Musk innovator to come up with something, or an entrepreneur or billionaire. No, we all need to be very busy at it. But some of those investments will be disruptive and change. That's my belief. But this is my eternal optimism, I guess. and I do read climate reports. Don't get me wrong. Of course, I'm worried, and we all live through climate change right now, and it's not good. But I think being very negative about prospects is not good for humans. You need to have hope. That's quite unique to humanity, right? So that's important.
Definitely. I think amidst all those reports, it's nice to find those glimmers of hope. Yeah.
So, Charlotte, as you correctly said before, today sustainability is a very hot topic. Many organizations are investing on sustainability, creating sustainability teams, expanding their sustainability teams. So, what is your advice to someone aspiring to become a chief sustainability officer?
Follow your heart and interests, I guess. I would say, of course, you can be appointed a sustainability manager or something like that, but you can make it for yourself. It's kind of through your own actions, you can become your own sustainability manager in a way. And if you follow your interests and passions, good things tend to happen to you. And I do believe that you won't be you will be noticed, and if you are very active in a certain field, and even if you work in a big business. So I would say that if you're really interested in this, kind of do what you need to do and knock on doors and get actively involved, start your own initiatives. I would always say that just go for it, trust your gut instinct, and ask for forgiveness later. Very rarely will you be knocked down because you did something good. And if you are, then just bounce back and maybe find another way. But sort of waiting for something to happen is not the best strategy, I guess.
That's great.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. It was really a pleasure to have you in our show. Fascinating to hearing your stories and your reflections on the role of chief sustainability officers in large organizations. Congratulations for the incredible work you're doing at Petronas.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this discussion, we invite you to like and share this episode on your social media. Enjoy the rest of your day.